Yo! What's up? Welcome. House Divided here on Orange Bloods Live. I'm Jeff Ketchum. That is Chad Hastings. I do think I wore this shirt earlier this week. Don't judge me, monkeys. It is what it is. Like, comment, subscribe to the page. I just dawned on me, Chad. I may just keep my hands right here.
Mm-hmm.
Then it'll just look like I'm wearing a black t-shirt instead of one that if somebody were to look back on Monday's video, it might be the same. What's not the same, Chad, as I tell people to jump into the Specs chat it up. Chat, chitty chat it up. Super chat it up. We like it when you do that in the Specs chat.
Mm-hmm.
Longhorns go into the portal, and I had a segue that was planned before I started the chat, and then that completely caused me to forget what I was going to say.
Turned into a little bit of a machine gun. Chattity chat, and it just fell apart.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what I was doing. I don't even know where I was headed. I know it caused me to lose my train of thought. But the Longhorns, without a perfect segue, dip into the portal. It's the big news of the day that they go out and get hero. Don't call him Naku because he's Haku.
No, not that either. That's an old wrestler from back in the day. Naku is the receiver for the Rams. Nakua is the receiver for the Rams. Haku was one of the
I said Haku.
Was one of the Islanders back in the day.
Kanu.
This is Kanu.
Kanu.
K-A-N-U. Hero Kanu. Yes.
God, this is the most like Charles Barkley I've ever felt in my entire life.
Terrible.
It really is. The Longhorns pull him in. Look, we did a show on Monday. I wasn't here yesterday. You guys did the modcast on Tuesdays at noon, which may be a new thing moving forward as, Grandpa Ketchum has to do admin business at least once a week. But yesterday, we talked about him on Monday, having just come out of the visit to Austin. I think there was a sense that, God, you want him to commit while he's on campus. The last thing you really want when you're recruiting portal guys is to have them go to another visit. And this is a guy that went from Texas to Florida. There was some speculation that he might go to Texas A&M. It looks like he then was going to go to Georgia. The announcement came early this morning. Still trying to reach out to Hero and get an update and kind of some thoughts on the decision. I'm also under the impression, and let me check my text messages and see. Still haven't heard back. I believe today is the last day to enroll at classes at Texas.
Okay.
So in theory, he could be enrolled today in school in here for spring workouts. I just read an update with him that I think was written by a Michigan. It might have been like the On3 Michigan site. I can't even remember what I was looking at, but they had mentioned that Michigan was interested. But that he wouldn't be able to enroll at Michigan, to the deadline to be in this spring. And I think that's true of Patrick Coogan as well, that Michigan is really interested in both of those Notre Dame offensive linemen, but they wouldn't be able to enroll this spring. And it remains to be seen how much of an impact that will have on their decisions. But it sounds like being able to get him to commit and then potentially enrolled today could get him in school this spring semester. I'm still waiting to get that confirmed. I've reached out to a couple of different people, but I think that's where things stand. It was expensive. I asked a source earlier today if it was 1.2 or more, and I was told not that expensive, but it doesn't sound like it's too far away from that. Like, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out. I don't know the market anymore.
Is this fair? What Vivek has typed, man, catch. I can't believe we paid close to 7 figures for a potential rotational guy.
It's probably not unfair. Close to 7 figures. If I said 750, just as a throw it out there number, do we count that as close to 7 figures?
I would say that's close. Yes.
Okay. Well, then, yeah, I would say that's fair then. And I don't know that that's the number either. I'm just in my head. I know what the limit was a year ago, and that's been shattered. And I know that, look, Georgia, I know that Florida, that these schools were offering big amounts of money. Maybe that, I don't know what this kid's ranking is. He wasn't listed on any of the rankings that I looked at last week for Rivals or 24/7 or On3 or 20 or ESPN. But in terms of who wanted him, it was all of the big money spenders in the SEC. It seems like everybody needs an interior defensive lineman. And, I was told like Texas probably had to extend itself out to get this thing done. That if you aren't a little bit desperate, you're probably not going to get anything done. So how badly did Texas want another defensive tackle in this portal recruiting class, given that they've already taken 2, given that they have Alex January, given that they've got Justice Terry, and then you've got the other true freshmen, 2 more that are all of them are on campus right now. I think they answer with their action. That they will have extended themselves significantly to get this done on the NIL stage. I think Texas fans want to believe that I think Texas fans feel like Texas penny pinches on the NIL front and that they'll get beat when it comes to NIL dollars. That is not what happened in this situation today. The Longhorns didn't get a cut deal. If they wanted to get Hero Kanu, they need, and it doesn't sound like, it sounds like NIL was really important to the decision-making process. So
understandable.
They did what they needed to do, and he committed, and it looks like he's going to be signed, and there you go. Yeah. Still digging on information related to Emmanuel Pregnon, the USC offensive lineman who was second team All Big Ten last year, transferred to Oregon. I have dug around a little bit on this, and I'm still vetting it. I don't have all of the information. I don't completely understand the dynamics as I'm trying to fully understand them. But I had heard that Texas offered the most amount of money per some reporting that we picked up at the Senior Bowl this week as an OB staff. And I dug around and asked, hey, heard you guys offered the most to Pregnon, but that he went to Oregon anyway. I kind of asked a question and got a question back in return, but it wasn't a no. It was, I think one of the things, and I don't know if it's necessarily related to this, but one of the things that Texas is dealing with in NIL is that there is an NIL offer, and then they're dealing with, and I think there was some worry about this today with Hero. One of the things they're dealing with that doesn't get talked about a whole lot is that they're dealing with what the on-the-record NIL amount is. And the bag man's kind of back, Chad. So you could offer a kid $750,000 in NIL money, but you might offer his parents $400,000 in a suitcase under the table. And it changes things. It changes the way recruitments get handled. And I think that, I think Texas feels like when it's NIL versus NIL, they do really well. And I'm not saying that that's happened here. I'm saying that in general, one of the things that's happened in this NIL cycle, this window, is that there's still a little bit of dirty, funny money that comes out to play, and that sometimes does impact recruitments. I don't know that that's what happened with Pregnon. I don't know that there was any of that involved with Hero's announcement today, Hero Kanu. I really want to call him Hanu or Haku, and Chad, I'm working on it. Hero. Yeah. I need to do the Mac Brown thing where I just look in the mirror and say his name 10 times.
Just say it. Yeah. Say it a lot.
Over and over again. And maybe I already did that, but I did it wrong. And once you do it 10 times wrong.
Yeah. And Brandon, no, Bobby the Brain does not come along as part of the package. That's not how that works. That is not how that works at all. But thanks to Chris Bennett for giving us a third song idea. Not only holding out for a hero, not only We Don't Need Another Hero by Tina Turner, but There Goes My Hero for Foo Fighters. Yes, there you go.
I am sorry. I am Bonnie Tyler all the way.
Yeah.
I just like that song.
It's a great song.
If you go back and watch the video, it's so dramatic.
Yeah, it is. Plus, Tina's has the negative connotation of we don't need another hero. So you don't want that vibe going out when you're getting somebody out of the portal. But there goes my hero. That seems like somewhat appropriate.
But there's motorcycle sounds and there's like explosions that are inside. It's just all of the production on that. And it's Bonnie freaking Tyler. Yeah. I need a hero. Like, what do you want? You got the scenes from the movie Footloose where Kevin Bacon's swinging around, and that has never made sense, but he's swinging around on chains. Like, I'm sorry, all these other songs fall way down below Bonnie Tyler's I Need a Hero, holding out for a hero.
Yeah, it's fair. It is fair. And Mark, unless you super chat, I'm not putting the one that you just put in the chat up on the screen. No, sorry, can't do it. It's a decent song from a pretty good soundtrack, but I can't do it unless you super chat. Sorry. You're going to have to pay for that one. All right. Almost 400 of you in the Specs chat right now as Hero Kanu is the fifth portal edition for Texas. We'll get more thoughts from Ketch and all of you on that coming up. We got buy or sell coming up. The ESPN 300 has been updated, and we're going to talk about what all of that says. We'll also thank our great partners around here. Let me tell you about Sinus and Snoring Specialist. I love doing it because I love breathing well. I love sleeping well. And I love that I don't have to deal with allergy crap anymore. We're coming up on February. February used to be one of the worst. For some reason, that weather change and getting towards springtime, things started to bloom and my whole head would close up and cave in, and it was terrible. I don't worry about it anymore. 2017, I go into Sinus and Snoring Specialist. They figure out what I'm ultimately allergic to. They can test you for 50 different allergies at once. No needles involved if you're freaked out about that. And then they get you those incredible allergy drops that are dialed in just for you to help you get rid of your allergies. And over it was like a 3-year period. By about that time, your body develops the defenses. You're not even having to worry about the drops anymore. It's fantastic. I sleep great every night. They dealt with the snoring and sleep apnea stuff as well. But man, not having the allergy concern, it's big. Do the same for yourself. 601-0303. Tell them you heard about it on Orange Bloods Live or mention my name. And you can also hit sinussnoringent.com for more information. There's some cool videos on there as well. Sinus and Snoring Specialists. Feel clear, rested, and healthy as we almost crawl into month 2 in 2025. Hard to believe. Time is flying. All right. Let's see. We got all of the chats taken care of. Ketch, I wanted to ask you, in terms of Hero Kanu, let's talk about, they brought in now 3 interior defensive line guys in this portal class. Let's assume for 1 second that that's it in terms of interior defensive line. Size it up for me for 2025, because last year it was pretty clear who those first 2 guys were that you needed to have step up. There was no doubt that Collins and Broughton immediately came to our mind. Do you have 2 that are in your head right now, or is that all still TBD?
I think, you know what, I wasn't sure with both Brevard and Travis Shaw.
Mm-hmm.
Those happened kind of under the radar. They didn't play out publicly. They just kind of happened, and I wasn't ever really quite sure what did these guys get NIL wise that might indicate to us how seriously we should. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's an amount that if you get paid in the portal, it feels like to me it's like, oh, okay, well, they think you are really, really important. I don't know if Shaw or Brevard hit that, but I do think Kanu hit that. I do think that he will be paid an NIL rate that will expect him to be, I think, not just a contributor on the defensive line. Like, I think he's being paid like a guy that I think the expectation will be that he's a starter. And so I think it's really interesting. He is not a nose tackle. He's a guy that played about 130 snaps last year for Ohio State, half of them on the left, half of them on the right, always as like a 3, 4, maybe 5 technique. He's playing that outside defensive tackle spot. So Brevard feels like the nose tackle. Travis Shaw has felt like a Vernon Broughton type, if you will, or Alfred Collins, right? I think it's going to be fascinating to watch how it plays out, because that's certainly where Justice Terry will be playing. I think that's where you would probably see Alfred or Alex January get some reps. So I think all of those guys are competing against each other for reps. The money that I think Kanu is going to get would suggest the expectation is he better play. If he's not starting, or if he's not clearly the number 3 guy and getting 300-400 snaps this year, then that was a bad investment and they got it wrong. So I think the investment tells us what they want from this guy. And right now it would appear to be as much or more than anybody else they have at the position, not named Justice Terry. Does that all make sense? Did I explain that well enough?
Yeah. I mean, and that's just kind of the math I was doing in my head today. We had somebody in the chat on the recruiting show throw in, man, I feel like Terry and January could be a great combo. And I thought, okay, if you mean side by side, you're asking a freshman and a sophomore to really step up for you immediately. In my head, one of the 3 of the experienced guys they brought in, one of these 3 portal guys is going to need to step up and go. And that's not really what happened last year, right? With Savea and Norton and even Lole, like none of those 3 guys by the end of the season were asked to really do heavy lifting. But I feel like one of these 3 is going to be asked to do it.
Oh, absolutely. And again, I think the price point, look, and I think it's, this cat is a really interesting cat. And it speaks to, look, when guys become available at the interior defensive line and they play at a big time program and they're not being viewed as busts and nobodies, but they're being viewed as like, hey man, and keep in mind, he has 2 years remaining. He's one of those guys, look, he's from Germany. He played 2 years of football before he gets to Ohio State. So he's as raw as a prospect at his position as any major college football player at his position in the country. You would say coming in, yeah, it would make sense that he needs 2 or 3 seasons of development. And then best case going into year 3, he's ready to give you a little bit of a contribution. And look, he played 100 plus snaps. When he played, it was usually between like 7 and 12 snaps per game. So, he's playing important games, not playing a ton, played about as much as Alex January did, maybe just a smidge more. But next year, Ohio State really thought he could either A, be a starter, or B, be the first guy off the bench if he's not the starter. That's what internally they thought. And then he goes into the portal and it really caught them off guard because there was a real sense of, hey, you paid your dues. Now it's time for you to be that guy. He goes into the portal, and unlike a Justice Finkley or an Aaron Bryant or some of the interior guys that have left Texas, this guy was really pursued by the elite of the elite of the elite. I mean, at the end of the day, this might have just as easily been Texas versus Georgia with just a little bit of Florida sprinkled in. That's not what happened with, Justice Finkley goes to Kansas and you wish him well, but the rest of the country wasn't looking at him as a player and thinking, well, he's just not playing at Texas because they got good players. I think they looked at him and thought he's not just playing at Texas because maybe he's not up to that level. Nobody seems to think that about this kid. While the numbers in the data says, I don't know, like what's he done? All of the schools that have recruited him seem to be suggesting this is what we think he can do. And it's an interesting deal. You're talking about a guy that hasn't done it yet, but yet the teams that are recruiting him feel like that guy can be a Sunday player. And I think that's what Texas has offered on the NIL front. a number that would seem to suggest that they think this guy's going to end up playing in the NFL when it's all said and done.
So that does lead us back to Bonnie Tyler holding out for a hero. I need a hero. Like, you can almost hear it on the speakers at DKR at this point. The dude turns into a stud. It's the Bonnie Tyler song.
And I think what's really interesting here, that if you're Texas, and I think this also speaks to how much they like him as do we think he could potentially be an NFL player? I'm going to have this in the war room tomorrow. Someone was bitching me out yesterday. Not bitching me out. He kind of made a criticism that sometimes we hold information and nuggets for the war room when I could have posted it a day before. Sometimes that happens. Like, this will be one of those times. I will mention it on the show here before I report it on the site. But, when you look at when they only want guys that they think are going to be NFL guys. That's how they're evaluating who they bring in. And so it's a telltale sign. If they're not bringing in guys, and we're like, why did they brought that guy in? He looks like a guy that you would bring in. He's made 25 starts. He's played left tackle, right tackle. He starts at center. If they're not interested in bringing that guy in, it's less likely to be NIL related and more likely to be that upon their evaluation of him, they didn't think he fit the mold of, we want to take guys that we think can play in the NFL. What they don't want to do are take guys that don't even incrementally improve what they had a year ago. And really, what do they think they need on that offensive line that they didn't have a year ago? I don't know that they look at a guy like Cole Hudson or even Jake Majors to a certain extent. And Jake's like a top 5 center prospect in the draft. That might not mean he gets drafted before the end of day 3, but there aren't a lot of people at the center position that are rated higher than Jake, but he's not automatically thought of as like definitely playing in the NFL at the next level, which when you saw Jake at times matched up against some of those bastards from Georgia and Ohio State, you're like, oh, why doesn't Jake look as good as he did in some of these other games? It's like, because that guy's going to be a first-round pick. And the other thing I don't think Texas fans have enough appreciation for, there's no magic offensive line this year anywhere in the country that I think was actually better than Texas. Texas fans have gotten to a point where they're like, we kind of sucked. Well, why did you suck? Because we couldn't block Ohio State and Georgia. It's like, okay, were you able to block everybody else? Oh, yeah. We blocked the hell out of Michigan. We blocked the hell out of A&M. We blocked the hell out of Clemson, Arizona to a certain extent. Like Arkansas, you can start rattling off the teams. But you didn't blow them off the ball. No, they kicked our ass. So we suck. And okay, well, but you realize there wasn't an offensive line in America this year that was good enough to be better than Georgia or Ohio State, and probably Texas for that matter, from an offensive line standpoint. That group did not exist. So you can make a case that Texas had as good of an offensive line as anybody else in the country. They just weren't Georgia or Ohio State defensive line good. And in order for Texas to make improvement, I think they feel like, look, in spots where we might not have Kelvin Banks at left tackle, right? And maybe that guy's Trevor Goosby. And maybe Trevor Goosby's a bottom half of the first round guy and not a top 5, 10 type guy. He's not Banks. But from an NFL player capacity, you feel like, you know what? Do we have an NFL player at left tackle, even if his name isn't Kelvin Banks? And the answer is unequivocally yes. I think if you ask yourself, do we think Jake Majors or Cole Hudson or even Hayden Connor were NFL players? I think with Hudson, you would say no. I think with the other two guys, like the jury is still out. The thing that would have motivated them, Chad, to go get Pregnon from USC, he's viewed as an NFL guy. That when he's ready to declare, maybe not first round, maybe not second day, but that he's a NFL guy, maybe 4th round, 5th round type of a guy, but nobody's questioning whether or not an NFL team will take that guy. And, I think that's what made him really, really attractive. And I don't know that Texas has found an offensive lineman that they feel that way about yet.
If you guys want to throw us a super chat, it'll go right to the top of the list. There's a couple chats that I liked here on the regular side. We'll get to those. Almost 600 of you in that Specs chat. We got buy or sell coming up. We're going to talk some ESPN 300 because there is an update there with a little good news for Texas fans. Also, some good news from one of our great sponsors, and that is AV Consultations. It's that time of year. It's never not AV Consultation season, but now that you're out of football season, start thinking about next year, 2025. Arch Manning in Texas, whoever your NFL team is, how many screens do you have? Are they good enough? Are they big enough? Are they badass enough? Are they HD enough? Maybe you're moving into a new place and you've already seen the room and you're thinking, man, that's the one. That's the place for my man cave that I've always wanted, or the family room that we've always talked about, where we can watch all the badass movies and have cool speakers set up and badass furniture. Let AV Consultations do all of it. Handle everything. Let them buy those TVs. They can get deals that you can't get, and they've been setting them up and making it perfect for people since 1988. 255-8678. Tell them you heard about it here on Orange Bloods Live. You can also go to avconsultations.com, take a look at some pictures, and see a little bit more about what they do. Thanks to AV Consultations for being a great partner of ours. Catch, we got a couple of regular chats kind of along this defensive line route. Both of these are from Michael. Michael says, Kanu feels Alfred Collins-ish in terms of size, potential, and skill set. Also in terms of the need to take a huge step as an upperclassman. Is that fair to Kanu?
No, I think he's much more Verton Broughton-ish. Look, this time last year, Alfred Collins gone out early, he was going to get a Senior Bowl invite. Mm-hmm. So he wasn't Murphy or Sweat, but he was on the NFL's radar and played enough and was involved in a defense that leaned on its upfront personnel. No. You can't. Kanu doesn't feel like Alfred Collins. Whatever we think Alfred Collins was or wasn't coming out of his 2023 season, it was light years further ahead than where Kanu is at the same point. Kanu's more Vernon Broughton to me. And if you go back and I think he fits Vernon Broughton's recruiting profile a little bit more. Not a super blue chip, but a guy that was a four-star guy that you would have hopes for, but not a guy that was a slam dunk by any stretch of the imagination. And I think he's got a little bit of Broughton's kind of skill set. Alfred Collins, I think, is a better athlete, just period. And I think he's more Vernon Broughton.
Gotcha. Here's what we mean when we say they will go right to the top of the list. We got 2 super chats that creeped in. Thomas sends $9.99. Thank you so much, Thomas. Can you talk about where we're at in the tight end room? Do we need to go into the portal? Trying to figure out what that next position might be now that Kanu is in.
Well, look, they've got a guy in Jordan Washington that they think has a chance to be a star, to be what they've had at the tight end position the last couple of years. They felt that way before Amari Niblack left. The feeling was that Amari Niblack, I think there's some thought that he would be the starter, but because of the seniority, because they don't really have seniority at the position anymore. They don't have a senior. They don't have a junior. What they have at the position is in the sophomore class, they've got Jordan Washington, who will be a true sophomore. And then they've got Spencer Shannon and Will Randall. And they're both going into their third-year sophomore seasons. And, those dudes haven't played. I don't know how else to say it. I don't know I had to go look up Spencer Shannon, but Will Randall has not played a single snap in 2 years. So Jordan Washington, they have at tight end. And then they signed Emery Winston and Nick Townsend at the tight end position. Townsend, I rank as a super blue chip in this recruiting class. But he is not here. He's one of 3 guys. Townsend at tight end, and then the Coleman twins, Devin and Jordan, they're going to come in after they graduate in the spring. They'll be here June 1st. So the tight end position's a real question mark. Look, Jordan Washington's going to get a ton of snaps. Winston, as a true freshman, will get a huge heads-up advantage over Nick Townsend because he's going to get a ton of reps. They only have 4 on campus in the spring, and they've said right now they're going to play Michael Terry at wide receiver. Now, could that change? Sure. But right now, as they get ready to go into the spring, it's a very thin position. It's an area for me that they have to go into the portal and make something happen. And like my idea of making something happen is in the gray area at best, flat out tampering and breaking rules at worst. But they got to find a way to get a tight end. They're not deep. The guy they're going to have to depend on, Jordan Washington, is very unproven, but he's a hell of a lot more unproven than anything else they have. It's why Niblack was important. He was, well, at worst, you're going to have Niblack. Well, what's Niblack? Well, at worst, he's a guy that we can throw on the field and he can catch a little bit in the passing game. He won't block anybody, but we know he can play a little bit. Tight end position's a total wild card.
Thomas, thank you for that super chat. Right as that was coming in, this came in with another song suggestion. $2 super chat from Mark. Enrique Iglesias hero video has Jennifer Love Hewitt. Yeah, it does. Remember that song, don't you, Catch?
I mean, I like that song. I'm okay with that being second. Are you singing?
I can dance away the pain. Oh, man, an emotional video. I can take my breath away. Yeah. She was awesome. Anytime Enrique made a video in that run, you just stopped your world to see what hottie was in it. Remember the one with him and Anna Kournikova in the bathroom? Oh, God.
I mean, if you got the juice, you got the juice.
You're talking about genius.
I do not hate that song. It's just not Bonnie Tyler, and I can't stress enough. There's just so many things going on.
It is not Bonnie Tyler, but Mark, I'm glad you brought it up because it's a good, like a sweaty, sexy, grimy video. So if you have not watched Hero by Enrique in a while, go check it out because he's
Bonnie
great.
Tyler version gets the crowd hype.
JLH is great. Oh yeah, if you're trying to hype up a crowd, of course. Trust me, we're not discussing what should be played at DKR. We've done that before and no one listens to us. So we will not have that discussion again. We know that is, they've already figured all that out.
No, they do listen. They just make a point to, okay, well, that's what Chad says. We're listening, Chad. We're doing the opposite.
Yeah, exactly. They listen. You're right. They listen. They just do whatever else from what I tell them to do. All right. Let's see. We had one other. Okay, this is also Michael, just kind of on the thing. Need to bring in an over-the-center, space-eating, run-stopping nose to compete with Brevard. If another Norton becomes available in the spring, they need to pursue hard.
And I think they will.
It's going to be a big question.
Michael, I think what yesterday does is they don't have to do anything else. Now It's very much, if we can find a nose, we don't need to look for anything else. Because they also don't want to do so much that they stunt Justice Terry. Justice Terry might end up being the best guy that they have. And if he ends up being a day one starter or a week 3 starter, has a little bit of the Colin Simmons plan where it's like, well, they'll put Trey Moore out there for the first snap. But then you see Colin Simmons the rest of the game. Maybe you see a little bit of that. Like they don't want somebody who's so good that they spent $1 million to get Justice Terry on campus only to be like, oh, well, this portal guy who may be stunting his growth is currently on the field. That's not what they want to do. So they're giving their young guys enough of a runway that if they're great, like they'll take the jobs. These other guys can be depth. There's pressure, I think, on every guy in camp at defensive tackle. Man, you better be good. You better bring it because there's no proven option, but there's a lot of potential proving options.
Yeah. And the extra pressure that's provided by game 1 is there too. Whoever you decide to go with in your defensive front, they face Ohio State game 1. There's no one or two
His
easier.
next game is against his old teammates. That's wild.
Exactly. For Kanu, right? Are you going to put him up against those guys that he used to face in practice all the time? Yeah, we'll see. All right. Let's see. We've got no super chats right now. If you want to throw them in, we will get to those. We obviously started talking portal with Hero Kanu. Catch, before we leave that topic, anything else you want to hit in terms of Hero, portal? Because I know we're going to get into the ESPN 300 discussion, and once we do, I know we're headed that way. So anything else on portal right now?
I would just say, look, if Texas brings a kid in for a visit, you know that they want him. Guys in the portal don't usually, and I think this kid's a perfect example. He had until today to commit to Texas to potentially get enrolled by he had time to lollygag. Couldn't lollygag. And I think these Notre Dame guys, the schools they're looking at, they realize, and maybe that's why we're not seeing, maybe these guys are like, you know what? If we're going to go to Michigan, we're not going to be there till the summer anyway. Let's just take our time and take some visits. Because they are not getting their visits taken care of today. And Texas isn't involved there. And I don't know, but when Texas has money that they're committing to NIL causes, I would say the last two guys they've wanted, this kid and then Pregnon, the offensive lineman from USC that ended up going to Ohio State. In both cases, they've offered the most money. I've not had that disputed. Now, I don't know the exact money, and that's something that typically, I think people want to keep off the grid as best as possible.
Yeah, but they're in play is what you're saying. They are in play. They are absolutely.
Yeah, and I think the criticism that I hear is that Texas isn't involved in more portal guys. Yeah. They're cheap because it costs money to be in the portal. And it just seems like to me that it's no, every time we see them actually involved with somebody in the portal, there. And I think the one that got him was the tight end from Purdue that ends up signing with Ohio State.
Claire.
The difference there is that Claire comes around at almost the exact time when Texas had to lock down its roster through attrition. So signing Claire could have very much impacted a bunch of guys that they couldn't just go sign whoever they wanted to in the portal without their team looking at what the guys in the portal got and then said, well, I want at the very least what you gave that guy in the portal. Ohio State, because they weren't they played the extra game, which meant they went through the attrition almost a week or two later than Texas did. It allowed them to maybe get him secure and done before all of the other stuff really came to a head. I don't really specifically know the Ohio State thing. I know it was right about the beginning of the playoffs when I started to hear, Jesus Christ, man, everybody wants to get paid. It's well, what does everybody mean? Everybody. Yeah. So, well, how many players did you meet with? Dozens, and not 1 dozen, and not 2 dozen, and not 3 dozens. Okay.
Yeah, multiple dozens. And Claire ends up at Ohio State, correct?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
And I'm saying that Ohio State probably had to deal with what Texas had to deal with a little bit later than Texas did, and that the dynamics of just when Claire decided felt more problematic for Texas than it was for Ohio State. And if Claire is either a guy making a decision now or a couple of weeks later, if the timing of that had been a little bit different, I think Texas may have extended itself in the NIL fray a little bit more there. I don't think they could have given whatever they just gave this kid, Hero Kanu. I don't think they could have done it 3 weeks ago. It just would have been proven very problematic for all of the guys that you were trying to retain who will feel like, look, I deserve to make more money in NIL than that guy. And it's, it's like, well, portal guys cost money. What can I say? They somehow had more leverage than you necessarily had leverage. And that's the way the world works. It's why sometimes maybe the smart thing to do is to put yourself in the portal, because if you want to find out what your leverage is, that's probably the best way to do it.
All right, we're crawling up towards 700 folks in the Specs chat. I don't believe we've heard from Lisa today. Let's get a little bit of Specs, and then we'll talk the updated ESPN 300 and why it should matter to you if you're a Texas fan. Here we go.
At Specs, it doesn't cost a lot to turn a good time into a great time, especially if you like saving money. From connoisseur collectors to aficionados of ale, you'll find bubbly bliss at any budget with a Texas-sized selection of world-class wines, rare spirits, craft beers, and more. So when you're getting ready for a good time, Specs is ready to make it great. Because at Specs, the fun starts here.
Shop Specs, low priced, amazing. Here's to you.
Yeah, we're going to bore that song into your head too. Love that. All right, Catch, you were the one that informed me of this today. I'll let you set it up, but we had the update earlier on the Rivals updated list, updated 5 stars and all that. Now we've got another one of the big lists that has been updated. This is literally today, fresh off the presses.
Hot off the presses. Look, I did updated my super blue chip rankings a little bit, very tentatively, because of the major recruiting services, Rivals 24/7 on 3, ESPN. Only Rivals has 100% finished their rankings for the year. And, signing day gets closer. Everybody's going to be putting the finishing touches on their rankings. ESPN announced theirs earlier today. It was important for me to see their final rankings because I wanted to see who qualified as a super blue chip for ESPN. Their number is a little bit lower than normal. There have been years where they'll have 65 guys rated at the 86 level. This year, quite a bit fewer number of guys. It didn't really impact Texas. They had Landon Jackson at 67. And just outside of even if we went down another tier, he was 2 tiers down. So he wasn't a super blue chip for them. Kind of the usual suspects. Justice Terry, 5-star. Jonah Williams, 5-star. Both of them inside the top 10 on the ESPN 300. Texas had a handful of guys that were ranked between 26 and 31. Khalid Lockett and Jamie French and
Michael Terry.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. I think the one that stood out to me the most was that they ranked one of the guys that Texas swooped in and got really late last year, and a guy that I've been trying to tell people, like, this guy, the Texas staff thinks he's as good as almost anybody that they've recruited in this class. And I just don't think Texas fans have completely talked about this guy in that capacity. But Cade Phillips, the cornerback out of Hightower High School, he was one of the 3 guys that made up the potential Ocean's 11 heist that we talked about right before signing day, which was what they were hoping to pull off, was Cade Phillips, Justice Terry, and Michael Fasusi. When they didn't get Fasusi, kind of felt like, well, I guess that kind of fell through. I don't know that enough appreciation was placed on the fact that, they went and got Justice Terry, who was a 5-star defensive tackle and might be a future first-round draft pick at that position. But they view Cade Phillips on that level. They view Cade Phillips as a 5-star level prospect. Now, if I'm not mistaken, On 3 had him ranked at that level as a super blue chip. ESPN, now the second company to rank him as a super blue chip prospect. And like what that means is when I do the super blue chip count in a few weeks, once all of the rankings are complete, it'll just give Texas one more consensus super blue chip. They're already number 2 in the country tentatively. I had them at 20. Now they're at 21. Georgia has the most at 25. That's tentative though. So like, it just speaks once again to what Steve Sarkisian and these coaches have been able to do to the roster in an incredibly short amount of time. And now Cade Phillips gets to count officially as one of these multi-super blue chip prospects where multiple companies have ranked him as an elite of the elite prospect. And who knows, maybe, and he's on campus now. I think people underestimate just how much that guy is going to play. I had somebody tell me a couple of weeks ago that they think he's a better prospect than Kobe Black. And Kobe Black's a guy that played a lot last year as a true freshman and projects to probably be a starter that replaces Jahdae Barron on the outside, unless Cade Phillips comes in and just is so classy and is at such a level that he jumps in front of an incredibly, insanely talented Kobe Black.
Catching, looking at the whole ESPN 300, I thought Texas fans might be interested in this, making them feel good of, what's the group you're keeping here. I counted up 15 guys out of the 300 for Georgia, 15 for Ohio State, 15 for Bama. Then Oregon's got 16 of them. Texas has 18. I did not. Now, I admit it, I didn't count every single team, but I thought of all the big dogs that popped into my head. I counted up Michigan and USC and Florida.
Give me the numbers again.
LSU. So I'm counting. This is just members in the ESPN 300, somewhere in there. I got Georgia, Ohio State, and Bama at 15.
Okay.
Oregon with 16, and Texas at 18. So,
and I don't typically care about that number. It's a good number. What matters is how many super blue chips did you sign? And for the sake of ESPN, ESPN's got Texas with 5.
Yeah.
If you wanted to ask me how many, like they've got Oregon with.
Oregon got 3 of their 5 stars. So I'm guessing if you're adding in
Oregon's got 5, just like Texas does.
I figured they'd be right there.
If you want to ask me about Alabama, because Alabama's got the number 2 player in the country in Keelan Russell. They've got the number 11 player in Dion Lee. But then if you keep scrolling down, and you're like, okay, well, where's the next Alabama guy? They got 1 at 38 in Ackland Deer. And they've got – that's it. So they only signed 3 super blue chips.
3, yeah.
So okay. I care about that number a lot more than I care that they signed 15 guys. And that's equal with Georgia and Ohio State. Again, I'll look at Ohio State and I say, how many super blue chips did you sign? That's what I personally really care about. And from the looks at it, it looks like Ohio State, at least for ESPN, only signed 2. Okay. So while their overall number is really big, when we talk about elite of the elite guys, they signed Devin Sanchez, a kid out of Texas, and they signed Tavion St. Clair, the quarterback.
So what we're saying here is on the overall first look, Texas is ahead of these teams, but you're saying when you dig deeper into what matters to you, they're still ahead of them.
Yeah, and it's where you want to be.
Yeah.
Because, you get outside of the guys that I'm talking about, and quite honestly, if you said, well, what do the numbers look like for the next 200? The prospects are roughly valued the same, get outside of less than 5 percentage points. So, ESPN does a top 300. They could do an ESPN 500. I'm still going to care about what I care about the most, and I don't care how many guys they ultimately rank. And, if it turns out that Texas Tech signed 20 guys, if you extend it out to a top 500 and Texas signed 23, I would say, well, who signed the most super blue chips? And then I would take those numbers off those bigger numbers. And I'd say the rest of that's probably not too far apart from each other. It would come down to development. Who can get a little bit more than the national norm? Do you go below the national norm? Are you at the national norm? Then it becomes about development, and you can cheat the system. It's just really hard. I can count on one hand the number of guys in the last 10 years who historically are known for every year not having breaks where they don't do it. Gary Patterson at his best at TCU could do it. A Bill Snyder at Kansas State could take no-name guys and develop them at rates consistently of higher rated guys. Take a guy like Nick Saban. I've looked at Nick Saban when he was at Alabama. Their non-super blue chip numbers, how do they develop everything that's not a super blue chip? Actually slightly below the national norms. So Nick Saban, not actually a great developer of non-elite talent. But you know what he did do? He developed the shit out of that elite talent, and he got so much of it that even if he was average, he still had a ton of it. And when you can do that, that's really rigging the scorecard. I think what's really, and I've mentioned this week already, Chad, I think what's really interesting is that in the last 3 or 4 years, the Alabama and Georgia numbers have collapsed, where they just 2 years ago would have had 35, 40 consensus super blue chips. They're now down to 20, 25. So their numbers almost been cut in half. And it's allowed Texas trying to catch Georgia and Alabama from just 2 or 3 years ago would only have half the numbers that those two programs have. Now they have as many as Ohio State, just a few less than Georgia. Georgia coming back to the pack has allowed Ohio State specifically, but now Texas and Oregon to get frisky with the numbers. They're close. Nobody else is. Those are now the new Big Five programs. But there's not two schools in that Big Five that are separate from everybody else the way Georgia and Alabama, for a window, for about a half decade, they were pulverizing opposing schools with regards to just sheer numbers. That's not the case anymore. And I think it will mean if you're not good at quarterback, you can beat Georgia. And I think that's what happened at the end of the year. They were super talented, but they had bad quarterback play and they couldn't survive it in the playoff field. Eventually, you're going to run into somebody with at least better quarterback play. If you look at Texas, Oregon, Ohio State, Georgia, and Alabama, and you say who's poised among the 5 top talent groups to have the best season based on who definitely has the best quarterback play, Arch looks like a guy that you'd be tempted to say number 1. Alabama doesn't know who their guy is going to be. Georgia seems to be leaning on the guy they played in the bowl game that, really? Oregon has got a young, badass prospect. Who knows how good he'll be? And that's kind of it. So Texas goes in next season with 4 schools who are roughly their equal from a total talent standpoint. But their edge may be at quarterback when those other 2 things are equal. It could be the thing that if Texas wins a national championship next year, we'll just point out the overall state of the rosters of the top 5 teams in college football were pretty even. But one school had a decided edge at quarterback. Boy, they better be really good on paper. That team should be ranked really high.
Yeah, Texas fans, great news as it has been. That ESPN 300 is updated. Just a regular ESPN.com click away for you if you want to check that out. We got buy or sell coming up. Before we get out of here, I also had one other question for Catch on the ESPN 300. Before we do that, let me see if I can make you hungry around lunchtime. Taste on Main, one of our great partners. It's downtown Buda. When this weather goes warm in a couple days, I've heard people griping about it. What are you griping about? You're griping about temperatures in the 70s? No, it's fantastic. And this is where you want to get out. Take your significant other, take a family member, take a friend that you need to catch up with. Head on down to Main Street in Buda. It's a great location. The multiple bar settings, you'll love it. That treehouse bar outside. Don't forget the Sam Elliott's mustache, my favorite whiskey drink there. It's a great way to start. They got great beers too. They got all kinds of good stuff for you. These are the people, again, that bring you Hayes City store, so you know you're going to get the best in quality. Try a steak, Oscar style. You will thank me later if you love steak and seafood. And I'll keep saying it, I'm a Brussels sprouts guy. When they're damn good, I'll tell you about them. These are the best I've ever had. If you're into it, go try it. Steak, Brussels sprouts. I don't know why the combo. I love it so much, but I do. They have some other great sides if you're not into Brussels sprouts. Taste on Main, Main Street in Buda. Tell them you heard about it on Orange Bloods Live. Real quick question, Catch, to clarify for the super nerdy that are going to go digging into the ESPN 300. If they're looking at the 300 and they value what you tell them in terms of super blue chips, is there a cutoff point for you in that ESPN 300 that you would tell them, hey, everybody from here up is a super blue chip?
86 and up.
86 in terms of their point scale.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. There you have it. So when you see there's a point scale out there, the very tip top guys in the ESPN 300 have like 90 or above as a grade. Catch is telling you if it's 86 or up, that's what he considers a super blue chip. So just something, which I think that takes you down into the 40s.
Yeah, it's like mid 40s. It's
Right.
a lower number than I would have expected, but like that number has been higher. Like that is consistently,
Gotcha.
you know, and you start getting at like an 85, you're legitimately at a mid 4-star ranking, and that's not elite. It
Fair
literally
enough.
becomes a different tier.
All right. Anything else on the E300 before we buy or sell?
Nope.
All right. You want to go first or second?
I'll go second today. I'm literally I have a hotter than,
Okay.
and I'm finishing the last sentence, so I'll let you go first.
All right. Fair enough. How about this? Buy or sell number one. Back to the original conversation. After Kanu, you feel like Danny Ocean. You think they need one more at D tackle.
I do think they could use another nose tackle. It's very specific. I think it's a niche market that they're looking for. So it needs to be a nose tackle. And I would expect that they'll have their eyes and ears open.
All right. Buy or sell number two, Catch. Next up in Portal Combat for Texas, a wide receiver.
Sell. I'll take the field.
Okay. We'll see if there's what that next thing might be. I may have to add something to this one. Buy or sell number three, Catch. Cowboys hire Matt Eberflus as the DC. Man.
Sell. I think you made that up.
Fair enough. Also, someone in the chat was asking about Tashard Choice. Is there actually discussion that Tashard Choice may be talking to the Cowboys?
It's been going around for weeks. I think that's just probably agent play.
Okay, fair enough. All right, Catch. Birthday time. Buy or sell number four. Adam Lambert is 43 today, which makes me feel old. You remember the song he sang on American Idol that shook up the world? I think we were doing radio at the time.
We were. I liked Adam Lambert. I'm trying to remember of his performances.
There was one.
Mad World.
Ooh, he did do that one. The one I remember shaking everybody up was Ring of Fire by Cash.
I think he actually made the Mad World song. Like
that was before?
No, but it was the one that he did. You're right. The Ring of Fire was first. It was one of his first performances. But if I remember correctly, the Mad World like put that song on the map. That
Gotcha.
It wasn't a real high charting song, and then suddenly it might have even ended up on the charts, and it gave the song new life. I think I know what you're talking about. So like,
yeah,
I will say sell. The one obviously that I remember is a different song, but I do now that you bring it up, I do recall that version. It was really good.
There were a few Cash fans that had some feelings about that cover back in the day. I dug it. I thought it was cool. All right. And finally, Catch. Buy or sell number five. Happy birthday to Oprah. She's 71 today. If you couldn't keep any cash, but you could keep stuff, you'd rather live for a month with Oprah money than Elon money.
If you couldn't keep any cash, but you could keep stuff. I mean, sell. I'd give me the Elon money. It's not actually Elon's money, right? It's just Elon level money.
Whatever, yeah, right. Whatever that happened, yes.
I mean, because like Oprah might I might have Oprah's money, but she might, I don't know, side street drive. Like she's micromanaging my spending.
Yeah, no, I'm telling you, I'm saying you get access to all of their accounts for a month. They can't tell you what to do with it. The only rule is at the end of it,
It is their money.
it's their money. You can take the stuff away at the end of the month, but you're not allowed to liquidate anything and then get cash.
I'm taking all of Elon's money. I'm buying the Liverpool Football Club.
There you go.
Literally with every dime.
Yeah.
I will literally go to FSG and John Henry and say, I will give you $40 billion for Liverpool.
That would be the greatest purchase of something at the end of the month where you're like, what? It's not cash. I don't have any money on me. No, I just own this soccer team now. What are you talking about?
I would own it, and I would have used that money, and I would be like, wait, whoa, what's this? He has $67 billion. I bid $65 billion.
There it is. Okay, that's good. I was a little nervous about my presentation.
John Henry would love me.
I am now glad that I brought that one up. All right, that's my 5 catch. What do you got?
Buy or sell number 1, Hero Kanu starts over UNC transfer Travis Shaw at defensive tackle.
I'll just go on the principle of everything we've talked about and say buy. Yeah, I'll say buy. I'll say he will be trusted to do it. It's one of those two or the other guy. But yeah, I'll go with Hero. I'll go with the cool name.
Okay, buy or sell number 2. Xavier Worthy becomes the first Longhorn in history to score a touchdown in the Super Bowl.
It's a crazy stat, by the way, that it hasn't happened. Yeah, let's buy that. I think there's points coming. It was 38-35 the last time they got together. I don't think this is going to be like a 14-10 kind of Super Bowl. So, yeah, I'll buy. Feels like Mahomes really understands the kind of weapon he can be, playing him off of Kelsey. So I'll buy that Worthy gets in the end zone.
Buy or sell number 3. You would rather have Aaron Rodgers quarterback the Bucs in 2025 than Baker Mayfield.
Oh, man. I'll sell. Give me Baker.
God, is that where we are?
That's where we are. Yeah. I want to, if I had seen signs that would, I know what he was. But watching that Jets team, it's not just what's around him catch. There are moments where he's just not Aaron Rodgers to me anymore. So I'll take Baker.
God, I never knew we'd live in a world where that could be a thing.
Yeah.
Buy or sell number 4. Bill Belichick said coaches can't win games without players, and then suggested the Lombardi Trophy be renamed after Tom Brady, thus becoming the Brady Trophy. And you agree.
Sell. We don't need to get that silly. I love the discussion about players and coaches, and they have the show on Vice about what's more important, Brady or Belichick. I get that. I totally get it. It's the Lombardi Trophy. There's no need to rename that trophy because somebody's having a nerdy discussion. No, sell.
He only has 2. Like, why does Lombardi get to have it named after him?
And, he was the first big time coach of that era. He was already a stud when that era began. Without him, maybe we don't have a Super Bowl era, but he was the first big time coach then. Like, who cares? We can't go renaming trophies.
What if
every
it was
like
the
30,
Stram
40?
Trophy? We'd want to change it.
Yeah, well, that's not as fun to say. Lombardi sounds cool.
It does sound great.
It sounds good.
That's what I want you to say, Chad.
Yeah, and Brady's got a boring name, and Mahomes' name is okay. We can't be renaming trophies. There's no need to rename a trophy.
I think it's a low-key, passive-aggressive way for Bill Belichick to get it into the ether that the name of the trophy should be changed.
Right.
And if you were going to rename the trophy,
name it after my guy.
Or me.
Yeah.
It's like, well, if you're not going to name it after the quarterback, I guess I can be the one.
Yeah, I do have 6 of them. How many did Vince have? Less than 6?
That's what I'm thinking. And finally, Buyer's number 5. It's a game of hotter than
planning an idea. All right.
Wags edition, NFL.
Okay.
Ciara, who's with Russell Wilson, is the hottest wife/girlfriend out of all of the wives' girlfriends among his NFL peers. Can you just name one?
Man, that's hotter than Ciara.
Because it's not Taylor. You wouldn't say Taylor's hotter than Sierra.
Sierra's so attractive. I'll say
Giselle's no longer in the mix.
Who's that?
Giselle is gone.
Right. Yeah, no longer in the mix. I mean, we could talk about, like, assuming, Sean McVay is still with the woman that he was with. Like, she's incredible, but that's a different discussion because that's not player. You're talking about the players.
What about Haley Steinfeld?
No. Sierra's no. I love Haley Steinfeld. Love Haley Steinfeld, but no. It's a buy. I'm gonna go with Sierra. I don't know if, like, Russell can be concerned about certain things in his life of not being a multiple Super Bowl winner, and what does that mean for the legacy? How do the teammates feel about him? Is he perceived as too fake? He can worry about all that. He should never worry about, I'm gonna walk in a room and somebody else may have a hotter woman than me. Like, that's just probably never gonna happen
now. And this list has Sierra ranked one spot above Brittany Mahomes, and that's insulting, right?
Wow.
Because I don't put Brittany Mahomes in the Sierra class of.
Here's what I know. You know who needs to show that list to everybody? Brittany Mahomes. If you need to spread the word that you're the silver medalist in that discussion, even if you're wrong. It's just like, when the actor when the famous person finds out what actor is going to play him or her in the movie. Oh, you spread that around. Oh yeah, you didn't know, like Billy Bean. You didn't know I look like Brad Pitt? Well, Brad Pitt's going to play me. Brad Pitt's going to play me in a movie. You didn't know that? Like when we used to talk.
Do you think the guy that got Jonah Hill, Paul DiStefano, or whatever his name is, do you think he sent people? He's playing me in Moneyball, no. Jonah Hill.
I don't. That didn't happen. Back in the radio days, we would have Brandon Lang on to talk betting all the time, and Brandon can say they cast Matthew McConaughey as me. Like, not many people get to say that out loud. I'd say it all the time. If I'm Brittany, I start laying that magazine down, whatever list you're looking at, I put that down in every press box in the NFL. I'm the second best looking one in the whole league.
No, I didn't say that. They had Sierra ranked 10th.
Oh, okay. There you go. Just circle those two then. Circle Sierra and her. And then you can talk about the rest of the list however you want. That's crazy. Who's one on that list?
I have to go back and look. I closed it down. I didn't know I was going to need it.
That's impressive. That's impressive for Brittany. You go on. You argue that all day, Brittany Mahomes, if you can. All right, there's our buy or sell. Catch anything?
FedEx guy that just pulled up. Like, you need to wrap up. I'm putting myself on mute before my dogs announce their authority.
There it is. Okay. All right. Y'all have a great rest of your day. Thanks for liking, subscribing, and getting those notifications. 800 of you in that Specs chat. Thank you to all of you for your support. Football with Friends at 6, Outsiders tonight at 8:30, and the Old Fashioned at 9 o'clock in the morning. And we'll be back tomorrow. I'll try to get Brian Jones on the show tomorrow. We'll see how that works. Football season's getting a little further away, so he may forget about us, but we'll see. If he does come on, we'll talk about new babies and all kinds of stuff because we got to get that all clarified. Y'all take care until then. We'll talk to you at noon tomorrow. See, that's going to make Catch come back for tomorrow's show for sure. No doubt about it.